Fridays is the full implementation demo, and we're going to be building a performance evaluation application. And I'm going to go ahead and just skip the agenda. You guys already know what's going to be covered in today's class, and I'm going to walk you through the workflow of the application. So let me show you the live example. So here's my login screen. It's a single sign-on, and depending on who I am inside a user table, it's going to redirect me to my own interface. Okay, now I only have one user so far because I want to show you all the steps before I show you how to create this. So we're going to log in as Mary. And Mary is actually the admin or the CEO of the entire application. So as soon as I log in as Mary, okay, I'm taken to my own interface for performance evaluations. And you can see that I have a couple of tabs here on the left-hand side. I can submit my own review. Okay. I can also track the progress of my own reviews to see how my manager felt about my own self-review. I can also have my own department reviews. So if I have a team that's underneath me, I can manage their reviews. And as an admin or a CEO or an HR person, I have access to all the reviews for the entire company. Up here in the upper right corner, you'll see my profile. So there's my name, I'm the CEO, my email, and I can change my password if I want to. I can also add new employees to the database or the application, so that's going to be my next step. And the first thing that I'm going to do is add an employee. Let's call this Ken Smith. Title, we're going to make Ken be a sales employee. Department sales, email ken@yahoo.com. And I'm going to create a password, and I'll say Ken S. Now the user level access, remember what I usually teach you in my Monday through Wednesday class uses checkboxes to give you user level access. This is a much more efficient way of doing it, but the reason why I don't teach that in the training classes is because it uses a little bit of JavaScript. It's actually very, very easy to do, and you'll see in a couple of minutes how we accomplish that in Caspio. The user level access, I want Ken to be employee level, not admin, not manager, but employee. And he's going to be reporting to, well actually first I have to add my manager. Okay, so that's the first level I should be adding. So let's actually make Ken be the VP of sales. Okay, because Ken or somebody below him has to report to that manager. So let's start that over. So let's say sales, Ken S, and we'll make Ken be the manager of the application, and he's going to be reporting to me. Okay, I'm the highest level, Mary, and Ken is going to be reporting to me, to the CEO. And date registered is today, and I want Ken to be able to log into his account, and I'll click submit. Okay, your submission was successful. I can go over here really quickly, and there's my two employees. I can click search, and then I can see the list of all of my employees that I'm managing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add one more. So we'll say Ashley Thompson, title, technical sales, department sales, email ashley@yahoo.com, Ash T. And we'll make Ashley be the level of employee, and she's going to be reporting to Ken, who is the manager. He's the VP of sales. And the date registered is today, and we're going to allow Ashley to be able to log in as well. And then here we can manage all the employees. You can see how all the employees are added to my list box. Click search, all my employees are active, date registered, and I can see the list of all of my employees and also their user level access. You can always go to details and edit that information if you want to. Okay, so this is the admin level access. I can see that as an admin, I should probably add one more employee for HR, because HR is going to have admin level access as well, just like the CEO. So let me do that. So we'll say Tom Perkins, title HR admin, department human resources, email tom@yahoo.com, Tom P, and then that's going to be also admin level access or HR. Reports to Mary, who's the CEO. Okay, so that will be this person's manager, and also the same date, and I'll allow login, click submit. Okay, so that's Tom Perkins. So let me now go ahead and log in as Tom Perkins so you can see, because I'm the admin Tom, I'm also going to be able to see the same navigation as the CEO. So let's log out and let's log in as tom@yahoo.com. Tom P. See, I log in as Tom, and I also have access to the same information that the CEO does because I'm also admin level. Now I can submit my own review here. Okay, so as Tom, I can come in here and I can say, all right, so let's go ahead and start my review, my self-review, and I'll say I'm happy with my job. Now, if you don't finish all the way through, let's say you stop halfway, you can click submit here, because the only way you're finally finished with the review is if you click this checkbox here, and if you check this box, you're going to see some conditional logic, which makes all of the fields required, and that means you have to fill in these fields before you can finally complete your review. Okay, so we're going to uncheck this for now. Click on submit. Okay, your submission was successful. Now I can go to my reviews, okay, and I can now track my review progress. So here's my in progress review. I started it on this date. I can go to details, and you can see that I'm halfway done. Now let's go ahead and complete everything, and let's just say I leave this box empty and I say complete my review. I'm going to sign off as Tom Perkins, and I'm going to date this as today's date, and let's say I click on update. It's not going to let me submit because I missed this text area. I have to fill this as well, fill this field as well, and once I click the final update, you can see how that pending now is removed from this bucket, and I can go to my completed tab, and that's going to show me my completed review. I can go to details now, and you can see that it's not editable. In other words, I can't make any changes to it. Okay, I can come over here and see my manager review, but it's not completed yet. So now if I go ahead and log in as the CEO, who happens to be Mary, and if Mary goes to her department reviews, there's Tom Perkins' review. Okay, so department completed, I can go to details, and here I can review the employees or Tom's review, and I can also submit my own review, how I felt about their job performance, okay, as the CEO. Now, I promised I was going to lay this out much nicer, but again, I ran out of time. It's really just a little bit more time to clean this up and make it look really, really nice in terms of laying out how questions are displayed. So I can see what the Tom rated himself in this category. I will say agree, strongly agree, and I'll provide my comments as well. So Mary's comments, click on agree, Mary's comments. I can modify their goals if I want to. Now you have some other options here as the CEO or department manager. You can uncheck this. Okay, if I uncheck this and I submit my manager notes, this is going to go back to Tom's pending bucket, okay, because he hasn't really fully completed his review. And just to give you a quick example of that, if I uncheck this and let's say I submit my manager notes, I'll say please finish the entire review, and I'm going to click on update. All right, now let's go back and log in as Tom Perkins, and that's Tom P. And I go to my reviews, and there's my in progress review, which means that if there's something that's incomplete that I have to finish. Now, of course, we would usually have email triggers in the back end as well, you know, so the employee just doesn't know to log in at some point and figure out if it's completed or not. We would have an email be triggered to notify the employee back to let them know, hey, the status is incomplete, your manager has reviewed it, and you need to finish it, or something like that. It's incomplete. So I go to details, and now I can see the manager notes at the top. Okay, and now I know I need to finish my review. I'll check this again, click on update, and that goes back to Mary's account. And let's complete this review step. So let's go ahead and log in as Mary again. We're almost done. And I will go to department reviews, go to details, and let's go ahead and say that it was finished. So I will go ahead and uncheck this box. Oh, I'm sorry, keep it checked. And what we're going to do is we're going to say completed, and now I have to sign off on it as Mary Jones, and the signature date is today's date. Click on update. Okay, and then you can see manager completed here that me as the department manager, I finished that review. Okay, so now I can log back in as Tom, who is part of the HR, and I can see all the company completed reviews. Okay, so we see that Tom Perkinson's review, start date, completion date, manager completion date, and we can go to details. And typically this is what an HR person would do. So let me go ahead and log in as Tom once more. There's a lot of steps to this application, but it's actually a fairly simple app. But I have to show you the entire workflow so it makes sense. So then as Tom, since I'm part of the HR, I can go to company reviews. Here's my review, I can see it. I have to go to details, and in order to file it, I have to just check this, sign off on it, Tom Perkins. Of course, I can see, I should be able to see Mary Jones, she's my manager. That's her signature down there, I can see that. And I can say today's date, and update. Okay, so company completed, and here's the final review for Tom Perkins. Okay, all three are completed, and I can go to details now. And as HR, I should be able to uncheck some things if something needs to be fixed again. Okay, but you can see that under final, we can see the completion of all of the steps. Okay, and I will also show you the employee side of things. Let me just make sure who is the employee, so you can see how this navigation changes depending on who you are as the user of the application. So we have an employee who is Ashley@yahoo.com, and I think I made it Ashley as the password. So let's log in as Ashley. So once logged in, you can see how the navigation is limited. We don't have those additional tabs. So as an employee, the lowest level rank, I can submit my own review as well. Okay, so I submit my review, then I can track the progress of my review, and then the person above me, who's the VP of sales, will be able to have their own department review. Now I forgot who my I'm just going to do this really quickly here so you guys can see. So I'll just make a submission, and we'll say that it was completed, and we'll sign off as Ashley Dobson, and today's date. Click on submit. Okay, and of course I can track my progress here because I already finished it. It's not going to be in this bucket, it's actually going to be in this bucket here. Now my manager is, I think, Ken@yahoo.com, and password is KenS. Perfect. Okay, so when I log in as the manager, you can see we have one less navigation tab. We don't have the company reviews, but we have department reviews because as Ken, I have my own team. And I can see Ashley's review. I can come over here and I can say details, and let's just say that we completed it. So I submit my own comments for Ashley's review, and we'll sign off as Ken Smith, and today's date. Click on update. Manager completed. Okay, so I finished the review, right? But you can see that the final review is no longer, it's not there yet because Tom, who's the HR, hasn't completed the review. And this is the final step. So let's log out, let's log in as Tom. Tom P. And there is the company completed reviews, which means that the employee and the manager completed the review. Now I'm going to go to details and finish it off. So I'll say I reviewed everything as the HR person. Everything looks good. Tom Perkins, and we'll sign it, update it. Okay, so there we have all the final reviews for 2 employees. Now if I log back in as Ken, I will be able to see that under the final review for the department. Okay, which means that the HR also completed that review, so we are finished. Now again, as I always say, you know, I built this application fairly quickly. There are plenty of ways to slice and dice the data, and there are plenty of other reports I could have built here, including some charts and graphs for each one of my user roles. I would have just ended up adding more tabs here on the left. So if I wanted to filter data in a specific way, for example, as a department manager, I want to be able to see all the scores for all of my employees. I could have built that report, built a chart, and I would have displayed how each one of my employees performing year to year, maybe current month, so on and so forth. Okay, but the whole idea today is to figure out and learn how to build this single sign-on and a much more efficient way of password protecting your data pages, because as you can see, each user level will be able to submit their own review using a new review form, and that review form is going to be accessed by all 3 user levels: HR, manager, and an employee. And we're not duplicating data pages, it's just a single data page being accessed by all user levels. Okay, so that's the application. Now let's go inside our Caspio account, and before I show you how this is built, I'm going to go ahead and unmute the line as always and see if there are any questions. Okay, so if you end up having any questions, just go ahead and submit them using the chat window. And let's go ahead and begin. You can see that the application that I just demoed has a total of 15 data pages. And believe it or not, it only has 3 tables. Really, it only has 2 tables because my third table is a simple table. There's not much to it, it's just a lookup table. So that whole entire workflow that I just demoed is 2 tables and 15 data pages. Alright, so let's go ahead and click on New App. And we're going to build from scratch. And we're going to call it Performance Evaluation. Alright, click on Finish. Let's open it. And of course, we always have a blank slate. None of the objects are there, so now we have to build our application. And the first thing that I'm going to do is build my user table. It's actually a fairly simple user table. It only has about 9 fields. So let me add my fields first, and then I'll explain exactly what I did. So of course we need some kind of an employee ID. That's going to be an auto number. I also want to have employee name, title, department. We're going to have email. That's going to be unique, because you can't have the same email twice. And we have our password field to log in. And now the biggest difference in this application or in this workflow, based on comparing to what I teach you on our Monday through Wednesday session, is you really just need one field to identify who your user levels are. And the only reason why I don't teach this in our Monday through Wednesday session is because, again, it uses a little bit of JavaScript, and we don't want to overwhelm our non-technical users, but I think everyone here is fairly technical now, and you should be able to absorb this mediocre level of difficulty that I'm about to show you. Okay, so one field for user level, and if you ask me, this is actually a much easier way of doing it, but I've been told not to do it this way just because of the JavaScript that's involved. Okay, so we're going to have user level, and then we're going to have manager ID. That's going to be a number, and you're going to be able to see in a couple of minutes how these two are actually related together. Okay, you're going to see when I show you the data sheet view how that looks in terms of who is whose manager inside the user table. Okay, so it's going to be basically almost like a one-to-one. Okay, so manager ID, date registered, be a date and time. And as always, I like to have my status field to allow access to the application. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is save my table, and I'm going to call this TBL employees. Okay, so I'm going to open this table, and as the Caspio administrator, you always have to have at least one user in the application, or the highest level, so they can log into the account, right? So we're going to list myself as the CEO. Department, there's no really department on the CEO. Email ned at google.com. Actually, let's say caspio.com. Password will be test. And the user level for myself, I'm going to list myself as the administrator of the application. Okay. There is no manager above me, so I don't need to list a manager ID here because nobody is superior to me. I'm the highest level, so I don't need to input this. Date registered is going to be today's date. And status, yes, allow me to be able to log into my application, okay, as an active user. Now you can just add additional users here if you'd like. It's up to you how you devise this, but I'm going to actually show you using the submission form when I log into my account how we can add additional employees to this table. Okay, so for example, I'm going to list one manually and delete it in just a second. So let's list Bob Smith, and we'll say HR admin, administrator, department human resources, Bob at caspio.com. Password will be test. Now, he's also going to have admin level, but his manager is actually me because my employee ID is number 1. I would actually simply put 1 here because I'm going to be Bob's manager. Okay, I'm the CEO and I'm going to be reviewing his review. Okay, and then we're going to say today's date and also active employee. So you can see how that one-to-one works back and forth. Whoever you list here, if it's an employee or if it's another manager, they're going to have their own manager above them inside this application. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete this guy. I want to show you inside the application how we can do that. Okay, so now let's go back to tables and let's build our user access table. So table user access, and this is going to be my lookup table. This is a very simple table. So TBL user access or user level, and in this table I'm just going to list 3 user levels: admin, manager, and employee. And the biggest table of all that we're going to need, where in the entire application workflow is going to be dependent on, is our reviews table. Okay, that table is actually going to have a few fields. So we're going to build that table now. And the fields you're going to need are basically, all the important fields are the employee name, because you're going to be stamping the employee's name when they submit the review. You're also going to be stamping employee ID. Okay, that's going to be a number. You're also going to be stamping manager ID. It's going to be a number as well. And the reason why we have manager ID here as well is because the department manager needs to see reviews just based on their department, and that's going to be based on the manager ID. Okay, so let's say if you have 3 employees, each employee will have a manager ID, and when they submit their review, you're going to stamp that manager ID that belongs to that manager of that department. Okay, it's going to make a little bit more sense in a couple of minutes once we start building our data pages. Let's see, we need a review ID. So every new review needs to get an auto number. Okay, so each time you submit a review, it needs to have a specific unique ID. Okay, review start date. And it's going to take me a couple of minutes to finish this table here. So review start date, that's going to be a date and time field. And then you're going to start adding all of your questions for the review. Okay, so as an employee, I want to be able to rate myself on some specific categories. So we'll say meaningful contribution. And I want this to be a number because I'm going to be storing values in the table. On display, it's going to say strongly agree, disagree, somewhat agree, but in the table, I want to store that as a number as opposed to text. Okay, so meaningful contribution, and then I'm going to skip a few of these questions. We're just going to go and jump right into job satisfaction, and that's going to be a text 64,000 field. And then you can also now list some goals here. You can say goal 1, how you plan on accomplishing that goal, I guess. So you can say list goal actions, and that will be a text 64,000 field, including this one here as well. So again, this is going to probably have a lot more fields, but because we're trying to save time here, we're going to list just a few questions for the review. Okay. And now the important fields that you're also going to need is the employee's signature, because I want my employees to be able to sign off on their review. I want employee signature date. That'll be a date and time field. And this is really going to mean that this is the date that they completed their review. Okay, I have the start date right over here when they began, and I also have the end date when they're done with their review. Okay, and then we're going to have, let me think for 1 second, employee completed. So we'll make this be a checkbox because I want to have that checkbox, so if the employee is finished with the review, check this box, because we're going to create that validation rule to make sure all the fields are required if they check this box. Okay, so I want that in my table as well. I also want manager's signature inside this table, and you're going to repeat some of these steps here. So then manager signature date, that'll be at date and time field. And then we also want manager completed, that'll be a checkbox. We also want HR signature. You can see how this is the biggest table that we have because the entire workflow will depend on all the fields that you have inside this table. HR signature date. And then we're going to have HR completed. And that'll be a checkbox because they can also sign off on it. Now let's see, what else do I need here? So I'm going to need manager notes. That'll be a 64,000 text. And the reason why I want this field is, let's say the employee submits their review and the review is incomplete. Well, I want to send a message to the employee why their review is incomplete or why they need to redo it again. Okay, so that's the whole purpose behind this. I also want HR notes because if the department manager submits a review or an employee, I want HR to also submit notes back to the lower levels to let them know why the HR hasn't completed their review. Okay, and I think I'll go ahead and end my fields at this. I may or may have forgotten 1 or 2 fields, but as I start building my application, I'm sure it'll come to me. But I'll keep it at this, and let's go ahead and save our table now. And let's call this TBL reviews. And believe it or not, these are all the tables that you'll need for this entire application. It's really just 2 main tables, the employees and the reviews, and this is just a basic lookup table for a user level access. Okay. And now I'm going to show you a different way of setting up views to who's going to have access to what data pages, and this is different from our Monday through Wednesday session. So let me build my first view, and my first view is going to grant access to all user levels. Okay, so I want the employee, I want the manager, and I want the admin to have access to all of these data pages. Basically, that's what I'm trying to build here first. So we'll give it a name, filter, all access view, something like this, and we'll base that on the employee table. Okay, Click on next. And now you're going to go down to the user level field that we added to our table. And here what you're going to do is you're going to select this filter data based on contains, okay? And the value is going to be admin or manager or employee. Okay, so if you're the admin, if you're the manager, or if you're the employee, you're going to have access to that data page. Okay? Just make sure you use a capital OR to identify or separate between this, and you're going to use the contains comparison type. Okay, and also the status checkbox, you want to make sure that's checked in the table so that the user can log into their account. Okay, click on finish. Then you're going to build another view for admin and manager. Okay, so these two levels, admin and manager, because admin can also be a manager in this application. Okay, so we're going to build a view for those two user levels as well. So we're going to say filter manager and admin view based on the employee table. And what you're going to do under user level is filter based on contains again, and the only thing you need here is admin or manager. Okay, you don't have the employee because these data pages that you password protect using this view, these two user levels will only have access to it. And also the status checkbox needs to be checked. And one last one that we need to build here is filter admin only access, because you want to have some data pages that only the admin should be able to see, but not the manager. Okay, so just admin only based on the employee table. And for this one here, you just need to be able to do equal, and you can say admin. Okay, or you could do contains, just make sure you just write out admin here. Okay, and then status is going to be checked. And these are my views. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to pause me. This is a little bit different than using the checkbox model. The checkbox model is not a wrong way of doing it by any means. It's not as efficient way of building applications because each user level you'll have to duplicate the data pages. So for example, just to put it in better perspective, let's say you had a update profile page. Okay, for each employee to be able to change their password when they log into their account. Using the checkbox model, you're going to have to build that data page 3 times. You have to build it for the employee side, you have to build it for manager side, and you have to build it for the admin side. That's 3 data pages, okay, inside your account. And I don't know how many resources you'll end up having, but with this model, you build the data page once, and you grant access to all of the user levels. Okay, so you see the difference? We build 1 data page versus 3 using the checkbox model. Okay, so that's the difference between these two foundations. And if I were you, I would learn this way because you're going to be able to build your application much, much faster. Okay, so now let's go ahead and set up our authentications next. And the first authentication is going to be for all access. So we're going to select all access view, custom. And then basically here's my email and password for login credentials. I'm just going to rename my label to email. And down below you're going to see some advanced settings. And the most important thing here is to make sure you enable auto login. Okay, if you're going to use that JavaScript later on, you want to make sure you have the auto login to log in all the user levels to the application. Okay, and also another thing that you're going to want to add to your application is the logout destination link, and also timeout and redirection. Now my page, in our example, here is my login page. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just double click on that so you can see. Here's my login page. I haven't deployed my login screen yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and grab my link here. Okay, this is my login screen, and that's my login URL. Every time a user logs out of their account, I want him to go to this page. Okay, so then inside my settings, logout destination, go to a new page, and I'm going to paste my URL like this. And which means when a user logs out, they're going to be redirected to this URL. Okay, I have to add my HTTP. So hang on for a second. All right, click on save. And same thing for timeout and redirection. And this is very common in a lot of websites nowadays. If you leave your computer unattended for, at least let's say 2 hours, and you're not inside the application, for security reasons, the system is going to automatically log you out, and next time you refresh your browser, it's going to be taking you right over here to this page. Okay, so that's it. That's all you have to do is just simply rename your label, all access, and let's go ahead and create this now and call it all employee access. Fetch. And now whatever data page you apply this authentication on, every single user level will have access to that data page. Okay, that's as simple as it gets. Okay, now let's go ahead and build our last two. We're going to speed through this a little bit faster now. So this one is going to be based on this one, custom. We'll rename that to email, and I just need to change my settings here. Hang on for 1 second. Let me just copy this so I don't have to do it again. Let's copy that. Okay. Create, and we'll call this auth admin and manager access. Now you're going to have your own naming convention. This is just a quick way of me naming it. Normally I would spend a little bit more time figuring out how to name my tables and views and everything else, but since we're pressed for time, let's speed through it. And the last one is just admin only, custom, email, and here we go. New page. So everybody is going to be redirected to the login screen if they log out. Okay, and let's name it. And once you get to this point, you can start celebrating, because this is the foundation, okay? And it really depends on how many user levels your application will have. I only have 3, admin, manager, and employee. You can add more to your table, and this is how you're going to limit to what each one of those user roles will be able to access or see inside that application. Okay. Now this application, like I said earlier, has a total of 15 data pages. Believe me when I say this, if I used the checkbox model, I probably would have ended up with close to 50 data pages using the older way, okay, the non-JavaScript way. But this model here is really much more efficient, because now you're granting access to multiple user levels based on your authentications. Okay, so now let's go to our data pages and let's start working on this application. The first thing I'm going to do is create my folders as always. So admin level, manager level, and employee level. Okay, and the number one thing that I build right away is my login screen, and this is where the JavaScript is going to come into play. So what I'm going to do is build a new data page. And we're going to go with an HTML data page to create our login screen. So select this, click on next. Let's call this data page login screen. And I'm going to apply my style, this one here. So I already have customized my style for the login screen. You have to make sure you enable advanced options and also passing parameters. And also what you have to do is restrict this login screen based on the lowest level access, or basically all employee access. Okay, this is very important. So you want to make sure that your login screen is password protected based on all employee access. Not admin, not manager and admin, but this one here. Okay, And then on the next screen is where you're going to input your JavaScript. And this is very simple. It's also just like copying and pasting. So once you go to our knowledge base, and if you search for user redirect, okay, create user-specific redirect after login. If you see this image, know that you're in the right place. Okay, so single sign-on and redirects you based on your user level access. What you're going to do is copy this code, this script, paste that right over here, and now you just have to modify this a little bit. Okay, so what the JavaScript is basically doing, it's saying that if, let me delete this and insert user level access, that field from my user table. If user level access equals to admin, I want them to go to this URL. Okay, this is the destination. Once they log in, if they're the admin in the application, they're going to go to this URL. And for me, my URL that I want them to go to is, the first thing I'd like them to be able to see was the company completed reviews. So this page here. So I'm going to go ahead and just open that up. There's my company completed. We're just going to go ahead and make that live. This. I'm going to go and grab my URL. Okay, and let's go inside the account and let's paste that in there like this. So basically what this means is as soon as they log in, they're going to go to this folder, secure admin, and they're going to see this web page where I have something deployed. Okay, so that's my admin folder. My manager folder, so basically in the JavaScript now, if user level access equals to manager, I want them to go to this URL here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go inside my manager folder, and I want them to be able to see department completed first. So we're going to open this up and grab my link. And this is just a web page, so everyone knows this is nothing complex here. So we're going to copy this and paste that right over here like that. And then the very last level user, which is else, so basically the JavaScript is saying if user level access equals to admin, go to this page. So that means if in the table you're an admin, you're going here. Else if user level access equals to manager, I want them to go to this URL. Or else if it's neither admin or manager, I want them to go to this URL. So this is going to be the URL for the employee folder. So let's go inside the employee folder. And the employees, I think I want them to be able to see my in progress first, so which is my pending review. Yes, that's the page. So let me grab this link here, sumapp.com. Copy that. And I'm just going to close all of these so we don't need them anymore. Okay, so now let's go inside our Caspio account. Now let's paste that URL like this. And this is it. This is as complex as it gets. Okay, it's really not that overwhelming if you ask me personally. It's just copying and pasting, inserting the right field for user level access, and changing this to your user level group. Now if you had an additional one, let's say you had a supervisor level, all you have to do is modify the script. So for example, I would take this, copy it in here, and then say else if user level access equals to supervisor, go to this dashboard view. Okay, so just keep copying and pasting depending on how many user levels your application has. I'm going to go ahead and remove that because we no longer need it, and we're going to click on finish. And there's my login screen. Okay, hopefully it hasn't been too challenging yet. Let me know if you need some clarification on anything. What I'm going to do now is deploy my login screen. I'm going to copy my code. And what we're going to do is find my login screen, which is right over here. And we're going to go ahead and open that up in Notepad to edit my page. And remember, so let me just close all the other tabs here. No. Okay, so remember, this will be recorded and available later on our website. So if this is a little bit fast-paced, you can always refer to this later after the training, and it will be available on Monday. Okay. So here is my login screen. I'm just going to find my placeholder. Here it is. And I'm going to paste my Caspio code, save my login page, and let's launch this guy. Okay, and there's the login screen. So now if I try to log in as one of the users of my application, which I know in this case is me, it's going to take me to my URL. And you may be wondering how come this is so close to this. You can add a heading above the email field. That's done in the authentication screen. So let me actually show you that. So if you go back to authentications, and let's say you go to that all employee access, and if you click on edit, right over here you can insert using this plus icon. You can insert a header and footer, and inside the header, which is right above the login screen, you can add something like H2 or maybe H3. I don't know if this heading is the right one, but you can say account login, and we'll close that H3 tag. And let me see what that does to my login screen now. So let's click on save, refresh, and there we have it, account login. Now you can play around with the padding and adjust how you want that spaced out inside the login screen. Okay, so now that we have the login screen done, it's deployed on this login.html page. Remember, I only have one user inside my application, which is me. So there's me, I'm the CEO, that's my email, and I have my password. So let's see what happens if I try to log in as ned@caspio.com, and my password should be test. I log in and I'm taken to my interface because the JavaScript is recognizing that I'm the admin level, okay, and it's taking me to this page that I put inside that HTML data page, this entire URL. Yeah, I wonder if my logout button works. Let me try to log out. Okay, perfect, it's working correctly. And to grab the logout link, that's also done inside the authentication side. What you're going to do is click on properties, and here's the logout link that you can put inside your web template. Just copy this link, paste that into your button where you have the logout link deployed, and that's going to log you out of the application. So let's move on here, and let's go ahead and log in now as Ned. This is really the most important thing I want you to take away from today's training session, is that proper way to set up your foundation. Okay, and this is as good as it gets right now. Test. Oh, I made a mistake somewhere. Oh, it redirected me to a different page because my logout link is not set up correctly. Okay, so let's see here. Let me see what I called my folder. It took me to a different folder here. So let me see. I called it eval training. Okay, so eval training. Okay, that's the right login screen. So I have to modify my logout link because it's redirecting me to a different page. Okay, so let's log in. Now let's log in this test. And you can see now that I'm logged in, I really don't have anything else set up. I can go to my profile, but you can see there's nothing here. I can try to add a new employee, but I haven't built any of these data pages yet. Okay, I can go to new review, and not even that is completed. Okay, so let's start off with the profile page first, because this data page is going to be shared amongst all the other applications, or amongst all the other user levels. So what you're going to do in the data pages, under the employees, because everyone in this application is really technically an employee, right? So the manager is an employee is an employee, and an admin is an employee too. And this profile data page is going to be shared amongst all the user levels. So what I'm going to do is click on new data page. And what we're going to build is an update form. Click next. And that's based on the employee table. And I'm going to call this update profile. And we're going to apply that same style that I have. You do not need to enable these two options here, and what you're going to do is restrict access based on all employee access, because they're all going to have access to the same data page. And this is how we eliminate that whole redundant work of duplicating data pages using the checkbox model. So click next. And record level security basically means employee ID to employee ID. Okay, so you are the user, you want to be able to see just your own data. So let's click next. And I want to see my name, my title, my department, my email, and I want to be able to change my password. And you can also enable user level access so they can see what level of user they are if you want to. It's not necessary. And the employee name, that's going to be display only, display only, display only, and I want them to be able to change their password. So we'll say change password, click finish, and here's my first data page. And let's deploy this now to a page that I called, oops, I didn't log out, did I? Oh, here it is. Okay, so this is it. Let me close these two over here because we no longer need them. So here's my profile page, and I'm going to deploy that right over here inside the admin folder. So we're going to go to secure, admin, and we called it myprofile.html. And I'm just going to go ahead and find my placeholder and paste my code. And this is our second page. Refresh it, and there's the profile. Okay, it just needs to be aligned a little bit because I haven't really spent too much time with these styles, making sure that everything is aligned properly. But you can see that I can change my password as the admin if I want to. And the next logical step is to work on this tab here to be able to add employees and manage employees. And that's what I want to show you next. And the only users that have access to that information is the admin. Okay, I don't want my managers to be able to add employees. I don't want my employees to be able to add employees. Only the admin level should have access to that. So I'm going to click on New Data Page. And I need a submission form to input new employee into the table. And you're going to go with the employees table, okay, because that's where all the fields reside. And we're going to call this form add new employee. We're going to keep this style here, and let's restrict access. This is the most important part here, based on admin access only. You don't want to have this because then everyone's credentials will work for that specific data page. Only admin. Click next. I want all the fields in my form. Okay, so then we're going to have employee name. That'll be a text field. Title, email, password, required. Okay, and there's the user level. Okay, you can keep it a text field if you can remember to put admin, manager, and employee. But you don't want to make any mistakes inside that text field. That's why I had that lookup table to be able to just select from the lookup table. So I'm quickly going to just make this a drop down. I'm going to use both. And first option will say select access level. Delete the value because you're not really selecting this. And then the lookup table will be that table of all the user level access. Okay, and then the manager ID. So this could be a little bit of a tricky setup here. It's really not too bad, but you basically have to create a cascading dropdown based on the employee name from the table already that exists inside the user or the employee table. Okay, so you have user level access. Okay, but you're going to have the manager ID now. It's going to be a cascading dropdown. Okay, it's going to cascade based on the parent field above here, employee name. That's a table. That's where all the employees are. Filter based on employee name. Field for display is going to be employee ID, and field for value is going to be the manager ID. Okay. So hopefully this is not too complicated. What you're basically doing here is you're having a cascading dropdown, and when you select the employee's name from here, you're going to display their ID, but you're going to store it inside a manager field. Okay, this is how you're going to create that who manages who workflow. Okay, so let me know if you need any more clarification on that. It's shouldn't be too bad. And then we have date registered. That's going to be maybe a required field. And status, check to allow login. Let me just double check my work here. Cascading dropdown, table employee name, because that's going to be, I'm going to rename this to say, instead of manager ID, I want to say reports to, and that's going to display my name, employee ID, which is their employee ID, and it's going to stamp it inside as a manager ID. Okay, good. So finish. And now let's go ahead and deploy this form. And let's copy this code. And let's go ahead and deploy that code now into my page that I called for the admin side. Add new employee. So here it is. We're going to open this up in Notepad. I'll find my placeholder. And there it is. And we're going to paste that code, save my script. Let's go to our application and let's go to add new employee and refresh. And there's add new employee form. Okay, so let's take a look and see and make sure this is working correctly. I think it should not be actually a cascading dropdown. Okay, I'll double check my work. It's not supposed to be this way, so maybe I'm getting a little confused. I was working on this application this morning a little bit as well. So let's say employee name can be, since I'm the CEO, let's go ahead and add the manager first. So we'll say Roger Moore, and we'll say title VP of Sales, Department Sales, email roger@caspio.com, password test. I will select access level manager. Okay, so I made a mistake. I don't think it's supposed to be a cascading dropdown. Let me go back to my account here. Add new employee. Even no matter how many times I do this, I always get confused from time to time. So let's see if I can fix that really quickly. Manager ID, dropdown. I think this is the right way of doing it. So we have the employees table. Field for display is going to be the employee name, yeah, and then field for value is going to be the employee ID. So it's not supposed to be a cascading dropdown. I apologize. So we have the regular dropdown, right? And from the table, we're going to select the employee name, and we're going to stamp their employee ID inside as the manager ID. Finish. Refresh, and let's try this one more time. Okay, so now it's working correctly. Good. All right, so the employee name is going to be Roger, or title VP of Sales, email. User level access is going to be manager, and I am the supervisor. I'm the only one inside this application now, and I'm going to have Roger report to me. Date registered is the 6th, and check to allow login, and click submit. Okay, so now let me just verify inside my table to make sure this is properly aligned. So we'll go to our employees table, and it looks good. So we have Roger, and you can see that his manager ID is number 1, which is me, and all I'm doing is basically stamping my information inside Roger's record. Okay, so yeah, again, let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to go ahead and add one more, and we'll add just a regular employee that works underneath Roger. So we'll say, how about Mark Pedro, title sales rep, department sales, Caspio.com, test, and this is going to be level access employee, and he reports to Roger, who's the VP of Sales. And check to allow login. And now you get to see inside that table. Let's refresh. Okay, you can see Mark Pedro has been added, but you can see the manager ID is number 3. Okay, that's Roger's ID. So that's why Mark is eventually going to report to Roger. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense. Let me know if you want me to explain a little bit more. Let us move on, and now let's go ahead and build this data page to allow the admin or the HR admin to be able to manage employees. Back to data pages. And again, this data page, the only level of access or the only user level that has access to that is the admin. So we will build a new data page. And I'm going to build a report, tabular format, based on the employees table, and let's call this manage employees. All right, restrict access based on admin access only. And yes, you could have a search form. If you remember my example, I had the search form to be able to find my employees, but let's go ahead and just filter our data. Okay, you don't need to restrict any kind of access here because again, the admin level will have access to all of the employee information. Okay, that's the highest level. And then over here, what we want to do is display, well, we're not going to filter any data, so let's move on to the results page. And in the results page, I want to see my employee's name, their title, department, email, user level, date registered, and also their status. And I'm just going to make a few modifications here. So under status, instead of yes and no, I want to change that to custom, and if it's yes, make it not complete. Make it active, and we'll make it inactive. Okay, click OK. Date registered, I can move that to the top. Employee name, title, email, we can render this value as an email link, so we can send an email directly. And then inside the details page, I want to be able to see all the data, except for, well, actually, the manager ID, you probably want to keep that in there because let's say eventually you want to reassign this employee to a different manager. You can do that directly from the details page. Okay, so I'll show you that as well. So in the next screen, we have the employee ID. You cannot change this because this is an auto number in the table. But the employee name, we should be able to change their title, their department. Again, this can also be made as a lookup table. Email. Should be able to change their password. User level, we should also be able to change their user level. If somebody gets promoted or demoted, we can change their access level. So we'll make this a drop down again. And this time I'm just going to use a lookup table, user level, access. And then a manager ID, it's going to be a drop down. Right here. Lookup table, employees table, field for display is employee name. And what you want for field for value is also the employee ID to be stamped inside the manager ID field. And I'm going to rename my label to say reassign manager, something like that. Date registered, I'll move that to the top. That'll be display only. And status, checkbox, check to allow login. Okay, finish. And let's deploy the second data page now into my page that I called Manage Employees, I believe. Yes, I did. Find that placeholder. And I also have this template available. If anybody wants these HTML files and CSS, I am happy to email you all of these files so you can use it for your own project. So let's refresh. And there's the list of all my employees. Okay, so that's the data page that we just built. You can see that the email is clickable. I can see all of the user level access across all the employees, all their names, titles, departments, and we can go to details for Mark. And here you have the ability now to change who he reports to, also user level access, and control if they have access or are not able to log into their account. Okay, so hopefully you're following so far. Let's go ahead and move on. I can now go back to my profile. I can edit that, and I can quickly add a new employee, or I can manage employees. Now let's work a little bit on these tabs here. I'm going to now show you how to build that review form and also that conditional logic on the review form, so you can see how we can use some rules and validations to make fields required based on a parent field, for example. That's a standard feature in Caspio. It requires no JavaScript. So first things first, let's go to our data pages, and remember, everyone is going to have access to that review form. Okay? If the review form is the same for all the employees, for management and all the employees, then you can put it inside the employee folder and grant all access to that data page. Okay? And in most cases, in most organizations, that review form or that self-evaluation form is the same for all departments. It may change if you're a higher level, like a VP of sales. You may have bigger expectations out of you, and you may have different questions compared to just a lower level employee. But I think in most cases that review form is pretty static, and all the user levels will have all the same questions. But if you don't, then yes, you will have to create a review form for the employee, and you will have to create a review form for the manager. There are going to be two different data pages. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So let's build our review form for the employees, because they're going to be able to see the same review form across all of my user levels. So I'm going to build a new data page. And of course I need my submission form because it's a new review. Click on next. It's based on the reviews table, and we're going to call this new review form. Let's see, I do not need to enable advanced options. I do not need to enable my parameters. I do, however, need to restrict access based on the employee access, because all the employees should have access to that review form. They all see the same thing. Click next. Alright, so now what fields do we need inside a review form? Well, I need my employee name because I want to stamp that information inside a review table. I want to stamp my employee ID. I also need to stamp my manager ID. Review start date. And these are going to be the review questions, so meaningful contribution, job satisfaction, my goals. I want the employee signature in there. I also want the employee signature date and completed checkbox. I do not need this, not this, nor this, nor this. Okay, so these I don't need. This is for the manager level, HR level, and this is going to be on the manager level and HR level to be able to add notes and comments. So click next. Okay, so we're going to make some modifications here. Employee name, we already have this information from the employee table. We know that Mark Pedro is the lowest level. We have that information in the employee table. All I'm going to go ahead and do is hide this field, authenticate, and stamp the employee's name inside the review table. Same thing for the employee ID. We have this information. We're going to hide that field and stamp the employee ID. Last but not least, we're going to stamp the manager ID because we have this information as well inside the employee table, and we're going to stamp the manager ID. Okay? And this is how the manager or department manager is going to be able to filter the reviews that belong to just his or her department. Okay, so as Roger, I know that Mark belongs under this manager ID. I'm going to be able to see all of my employees in my department based on this manager ID. Review start date. So let's have this be a required field for the employee to select the date that they're starting their review. And then meaningful contribution. So this, typically what I would do is make this a radio button. Make that a required field. Or actually, don't make it required. You'll see why. And then we're going to list a few. So let's say, am I providing meaningful contributions? So you can say strongly agree. That'll be a value of 3 or a score. And this is where you're going to be recording inside a table. This is going to be for display, and this is going to be scored inside a table. Somewhat agree, or actually agree. That's a 2. Somewhat disagree. That's a 1. And then you'll have disagree. Strongly disagree. And that'll be a 0. Of the score. Now the beautiful thing about the latest release that just came out, 8.1, instead of you having to retype this for every single question, you can now have lookup tables based on radio buttons, which is going to save you a tremendous amount of time. So if I had a lookup table of all of these options and all of these values, I could just connect that using a right over here. You can see down there below cascading radio buttons. Okay. So that's the nice thing about the 8.1 release. You do not have to manually add all of these custom values yourself. Okay, so just create that lookup table and you're done. Okay, and then job satisfaction. This is going to be a text area for me to fill in my how I felt about my how satisfied I am about my job performance, basically. Also, a newest addition to our 8.1 release. I don't know if you noticed already, but we now can adjust the width and height of all of our fields and text areas in terms of pixels and percentages. So that's also pretty cool. Gives you more control in terms of the width of your fields. And then we have our goals. So we'll make goal, this be a text area, this will be a text area. How I plan on accomplishing these goals, for example. And then what I'm going to do is actually going to move this up above the signature and above the date. And this is going to be a checkbox. Okay, and I'm going to put employee, or let's say status, and display text. Check only if you fully completed your review, for example. And then you have your signature line. That's going to be a text field, and you have your date line when you finished. You're going to make that a required. Well, no, don't make it required. You'll see why in just a second. Okay. For now, we're going to leave it just like this. I'm going to click on Finish. And let me go ahead and deploy this now. The new review. And I called my page New Review. Let's open it up in Notepad. And we're going to paste our code. Let's save it. And let's go ahead and refresh now. So if I go to New Review, there's that review. Okay, review start date. There's my question, how I felt about my contribution, goal, and then list of actions. And of course, we have our signature and date field. If I check this, you're going to see that there's no validation yet, no required field. So let's do that next. This is what I wanted to show you. So inside a data page wizard, we're going to edit that form. And this is also one of my favorite features inside Caspio. Okay, so there's that checkbox, okay, if you're fully completed the review. We also have this tab at the very top. It's called Rules. So if you select this, and if you create a new rule, so if you click on this plus icon, and then you have these two text areas where you can define all of your rules. Okay, so criteria 1, if I click on New, and if I select Field Name, which is my checkbox, Employee Completed, okay, Operator is checked, so that means if this is checked, okay, then I'm going to create my action. So if employee is checked, we're going to say required, and you can see how I have the list of all of my questions. So I want to make sure that this radio button question is required. I also want to make sure to require goal 1. Job satisfaction, this is the comment section. I'm not going to make that required, but actually let's make it required, okay? Another one that I'm going to do is require goal 1. Also, actually all of these are going to have to be required. So list goal actions, that's required. Required employee signature. And also, last but not least, we're going to require the signature date. Click OK. And if you configure this correctly, and if you click Finish, refresh. Okay, you can see how these are not required yet because I want them to be able to get to a halfway point and click on Save or Submit if they're not fully completed. The only time that you're actually going to complete this is if you finally check this box. And if you do end up doing that, you're going to see now how all of these fields are required just to verify, to double check that you've inputted all of these fields inside your review before you make the final submission. Okay, so let's go ahead and now get to a halfway point because I want to show you another data page. So we're going to select today's date, meaningful contribution, I strongly agree, job satisfaction, overall I'm happy with my job, goal 1, no goal, list of goals, and status. I'm not done yet, so I'm going to click on Submit. Okay, your submission was successful. Now when I go to my reviews, Okay, I need to build my data page that's going to show me my pending bucket list. Okay, so we're going to go to data pages, and this is also going to be for all the employees, because all the employees need to track their own review. Okay, because they're all making the same, they're all doing the same workflow. Okay, so I'm going to build a data page, and I'm going to build my report. And this report is going to be based on the tabular format. That's the layout. We're going to click next. And this needs to be based on the reviews table. Just keep the same style. And I'm going to call this data page pending, or my pending reviews. Restrict access based on all authentication, all access, because they all have that same functionality. Click on next. Not going to be able, don't need to search anything. Let's just filter, okay? And you want to see your own reviews, your own pending reviews. You don't want to see all the employee reviews, and you need to set it up to employee ID to employee ID, just based on my employee ID. Click on next, and then right over here, when it comes to filtering, you want to include that employee checkbox that it's completed. Okay, this is what's going to allow you to filter this review. So you're going to include this checkbox. And what you're going to make sure is this is not checked. Okay, because remember, when I submit my review, as long as I don't check this checkbox, this is going to display. So this is only filtering the ones that are not checked. Okay, so you're going to leave this unchecked then in that case. Click next. And then on the results page, I just want to list my start date. I think that's the only thing I need. Okay, that's my start date. And let's dive into the details page. And now in the details page, you just have to reconfigure your fields again. Okay, so in the details view, I'm going to show review start date, meaningful contribution, satisfaction, my goals. I also want to have my employee signature completed, and that's it. That's all I need to have in here. I also am going to actually show my manager notes and also my HR notes. And you're going to see why in this details page I want to enable this. I'm going to click on next. I'm going to move these two fields to the very top. And what's going to happen in the details view here for manager notes, you're going to say, wait a minute. Oh, right, I have to enable advanced options. So let me go back a few steps. I do need to enable advanced options here, so let me go back to my details view. Okay, so here's the manager notes, right? I'm gonna go to the advanced tab, and I'm gonna say hide field if blank. Okay, so if there are no notes submitted by the manager, I don't want to show that field. It's gonna hide it. But once the manager reviews that self-evaluation for his employee, he can add the notes, and as long as he adds notes to that text area, then as an employee, I'll be able to see those notes if he adds them to that text area. And same thing for HR. Hide if blank, unless the HR puts something inside that text area. Okay? So now let's go to our review start date. That's going to be display only. I no longer have the ability to change that. Meaningful contribution. So again, you're going to do those radio buttons, but again, like I said, if you have that lookup table, it saves you a lot more time. So we'll say strongly agree real quickly here. That'll be a 3. And we'll say agree. That'll be a 2. Somewhat disagree. 1. And strongly disagree. That'll be a 0. Okay, and then we have our text areas here. So we'll make this a text area. List of actions, text area, and I'm just going to move my checkbox here again. And now you have to create that same workflow, that same functionality, right? So we're going to make this a checkbox. Status check only if you've fully completed the review. Employee signature, that's a text field. Oh, this is a calendar pop-up. And I have to enable that same rule. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to easily copy these rules, so you have to do this one more time. we're going to add that rule, and I'll just do it really quickly here. So I'll find that field. It's checked, and I'm just going to apply all of my rules because they all need to be required. Okay. And if you have to go, you have to go. I do understand, like I said before, this is going to be a longer session because there's a lot to cover. But a lot of the stuff that I'm doing here is really repetitive, and we're going to be just building data pages for each one of our folders. And I think I'm done. Yeah, I was done. Okay, so we're going to click Finish. And now let's go ahead and deploy this data page into the page that I called. I believe I called it My In Progress. So let me take a look here. Yeah, so it's called myinprogress.html. Okay, there you are. We're going to open that up in Notepad. And let me paste my code, save it, and refresh it. Okay, and there's my pending review. So me as an HR person, I can also submit a review too, okay, because I'm also an employee. I can go to my review form and I can submit a new review if I want to. Okay, so here's my reviews, here's my in progress. I can go to details, and now you can see that I've completed up until this point my review. I now have to just finish off and just sign it as, who am I logged in as? I'm logged in as, I forgot who I logged in as. I don't remember. I think I'm still logged in as me, and since nobody is really reviewing my reviews, I do not need to submit that. So what we're going to do in this case is we're going to go ahead and log in as Mark. Okay, so let's do that. Let's log in as Mark. So remember, we have that employee. Trying to see why my drop down is not working. Let me go to my new review. Okay, so let's manage employees. So we have Mark. We're going to go to log in as this employee because I'm logged in as myself, and I can't really show you the next step because nobody's really going to review my review. I'm the CEO. So let's go ahead and log out. And let's log in as Mark. I hope I'm getting the email right. Okay, good. So I'm logged in as Mark, but as you can see, I don't have any data pages deployed for Mark yet. But we can do this really quickly because we already built those data pages. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my employee folder, okay, for Mark, and then we're going to go to Caspio. And what I'm going to do is just deploy my new review form. I'm going to copy this. And let's go to our URL. And this is new review. This is for Mark. So I need to paste that deploy code for this user level as well. Okay, and since they're sharing it, I should be able to see that as Mark as well. It's the same form as the HR is going to be able to submit, or a manager. Okay, you just redeploy the same code again, and then my reviews, I already built this one, so let's deploy that one as well. So that's the in progress or pending. So we'll copy that code, and this one is called my in progress. Okay. Alright, so this is going to make a little more sense now. Okay, so no records found. Now let me go ahead and just submit one review as Mark. So what I'm going to do is, review start date is the 6th. Strongly agree, blah, blah. And we'll say Mark Pedro, I signed off on it. Signature date is today's date. And I'm done with my review. I'm going to click on submit. Okay, hopefully it goes through. Okay, so submission was successful. And now when I go to my reviews, you can see that I have no in progress reviews because Mark has already completed his review. So that should be here in the completed bucket. Okay, but before I can see that, I have to build that data page that's going to filter my completed reviews. So in this case, if I go back to Caspio, you can see that I don't have that data page yet. So I'm going to build a new data page. And this one's going to be actually pretty easy to build. So we're going to go to Reports, Tabular Format, Reviews, and let's call this My Completed Reviews. Restrict access based on all access. And everything else looks okay. Not going to be needing to search anything. Let's just filter, and I just want to see my own completed reviews. And we're going to filter based on, let's take a look at here. We're going to have employee completed. So same as the pending one. However, this one now I want it to be checked, not unchecked, because if the employee finally submits the review and they click on check, it's going to display these items. And then on the results page, we're going to have the start date. And I also want to include the employee's signature date to let me know what date they finished their review, or when the review was completed. Click Next. Not going to make any changes here. Not going to make any changes here. Enable the details page. And now on the details page, once they complete their review, I don't want them to be able to edit their review again. So we're going to keep everything display only. So I'm going to have the start date, the end date, and then I'm going to have what they scored themselves on the meaningful contribution, job satisfaction, all their goals, and I guess we can show the employee's signature, but it's really not needed. And we can also include the manager notes and also the HR notes as well. And as you can see, I'm keeping everything display only, so they can't make any more changes to the review. Click Finish. And now let's go ahead and deploy this data page to that tab that's called Completed, and I call that mycompleted.html. So myCompleted, and we're going to go ahead and paste that. Okay, so review start date. This, I would normally rename this label in my results page to employee completion date or something like that. I didn't rename my label, but you can do that easily inside Caspio. And then when I go to details, I can see everything that I submitted regarding my review. I can see the manager notes, and I can also see the HR notes. Now normally, I would hide these two fields. Just like in the advanced options, you can say hide field of blank, so if there's nothing showing, okay, you don't need to display these two fields. Let me show you really quickly one more time. So my completed reviews, click on Edit. Just make sure you have the Advanced tab or the Advanced checkbox enabled. Skip all the way to your Details page. Here's my Advanced tab, and all I'm going to do for Manager Notes is hide field of blank and hide field of blank. Finish. Refresh, and there you have it. Okay, and now we can go to manager review, but we can't see this yet until the manager, or in this case Roger, has completed Mark's review. Okay, so far as Mark, we can, well, let's deploy this code for Mark as well, because he should be able to update his profile too, and we already have that data page, and we called it update profile. So let's copy and paste that into a page that we called my profile. I hope you're seeing how quickly you can build these applications using Caspio. I mean, it's fairly straightforward. I think the only time-consuming part is really to embed these data pages into your website and to come up with a really nice interface where you're going to deploy these codes. Refresh, and here's my profile as Mark. I can change my password whenever I want to. I can submit a new review, and up until now I can track my in-progress reviews, and I can see my completed reviews that I finished as Mark. Now what I need to do is make sure that the manager, who's Roger, in this case we're going to log out, and let's log in as roger@yahoo.com. Oh, of course I forgot my manager. Yes, can anyone hear me okay? Can you hear me? I'm going to try to Can everyone hear me okay now? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Let me know if you're able to hear me. Okay, excellent. Okay, sorry about that. I actually just dialed in using my phone. I was using my mic and speakers here, so let's try this one more time. Okay. So let's go ahead and see who my manager is. Now I'm going to manage my employees here. Let's take a look. And Roger at Caspio.com, and I believe the password should be test. And we know that the mark is actually reporting to Roger, so let me go ahead and log out and see if I can log back in as Roger. So let's log out. And Roger at Caspio.com. I put yahoo.com. Okay. So test. And you can see now, as a manager, I want to be able to see my department reviews, all the employees that are underneath in my department. But also as a manager, I can submit my own review. And you can see that I have a placeholder here. So what I'm going to do is just really quickly just do the same functionality for the management as well, since we already have these data pages built. So new review, I'm going to copy this code. And we're going to paste that code inside the manager folder now. And this is called my review or new review. Once you have all the data pages built, I mean, it's then just an easy step to just copy and paste all these data pages in their appropriate place. So let's refresh now. So now the manager should be able to submit a review. And as a manager, I also want to track my in-progress reviews and my completed reviews. So in progress or pending. So my in progress, here it is, and we're going to paste that code. If you get as good as I am when it comes to this, really you can build this application in 2 hours, no more than that. The rest of the time it's going to take you just to polish things up, to make it look nice. But once you get the hang of it, where you're deploying things and access levels to who has access to what, it gets super easy to build these applications, and you can build robust applications, very complex apps, and you can just easily embed them and deploy them into a website. My completed, so let's go to completed reviews. And that's going to go to my completed. Okay, refresh. Okay, so no records found and no records found, but I could, as Roger, start my own review. So we'll save this and click on submit. Okay, go over here and you can see no records found, but over here I can see that there's one completed review, but I don't have the manager review yet. Okay, so far Mark has submitted a review and he has completed his review. So now as his department manager, I want to be able to see my department completed reviews. Okay, and to do this, inside Caspio, now you're going to have to work inside the manager folder, because manager should have access to that data. Okay, both the admin and the manager. Okay, so we're going to click on new data page. Okay, we're going to go with the reports, tabular format, based on the reviews, and let's call this department completed reviews. You don't have to enable these two, but I always end up doing so just in case, so I don't have to go back in case I forgot it. So we'll just enable both of these, and we're going to restrict access based on both admin and manager access. And the reason why is because the admin can also be a manager. Okay, because in this case the HR administrator could have employees underneath him or her that are inside the HR department, and the HR manager should be able to review all the HR employees as well. Okay, so we're going to have admin and manager access, but not employee. Okay, click next. Let's go ahead and filter our data. Okay, we don't need to search. We just want to see all the ones that are completed by our employees. And then the record level security, so this is probably the most important thing here. What you're going to do is, I want it based on my employee ID, okay? But here you want to select manager ID. Okay, so my employee as Roger is number 3, and I want all the my employees in my department who are also ID number 3 to filter based on the manager ID. Okay, so we'll click next. I'm not going to filter, and on the results page I want to see my employee's name in my department. I want to see their start date and completion date. Employee completed. Yeah, that's good. Click next. Employee name, review start date, and you can rename this to say review end date, for example. Okay, now I'm going to make any changes here. We're going to enable the details page, and in the details page again, employee name, start date, end date, and then now they have, oh, there is one thing that I forgot to do. I forgot to add a few more fields inside my table for the manager to be able to submit their review as well. Okay, so yeah, I would need to have another field here that's called manager meaningful contribution, because not only can I see my employee's contribution, I want to be able to submit my own rating on how I felt about their contribution to what they're doing. So yes, I will be able to see their job satisfaction, their goal actions, and down below, same as the employee level, you now want to have the manager be able to sign off on it, signature date, and also complete it. Okay, and we're also going to add some notes for the manager to be able to submit notes to the employee if they have additional notes regarding their review. Okay, so I'm going to have to go back to my table and make a few modifications. So let's click next, and in the details view I have the employee name, start date, end date. I can see their meaningful contribution, how they felt about their performance. I can see their job satisfaction, their goals, which should be editable, because as a manager I want to be able to change their goals. Then the manager's signature, so this is going to be a text field. Also the date field, and completed, I'm going to move this up. We'll make this a checkbox, call it status, and check only if you've fully completed the employee's review, something like that. Okay, this is also going to have that rule where we can make everything else required for the manager side before they can finally submit it to the HR, where the HR is going to give it the final review. And then you have the notes. So let's move the notes maybe up above a little bit, and we'll make that a text area. All right, and let's click finish. Okay, so you'll see what I'm talking about here. So the department completed, right? So let's go ahead and deploy this inside the manager folder. So this is called department completed. And then we're going to paste that code inside a placeholder. And let's come over here and refresh. And now you can see there's the marks review because it's completed. He himself checked the box and said that he's done with it. I'm going to go to details now. And you can see that I can see his reviews, his goals, how he felt about his job. And down below here, I have the status as a manager. I got to sign off on this, check this to make all the other fields required. But I forgot to add a few more fields inside my review table. So let me do that next. I'm going to go to my table of reviews and add just one or two more fields here. I'm going to add manager meaningful contribution, and I'm also going to add, that's a number, and I'm also going to add manager job satisfaction, and that'll be a text 64,000. Save it. Okay, let's go back to that department completed data page. Edit. And let's go over to our details page. Here are those two fields that I just added to my table. And I want them side by side. So I want this review or this rating with the radio button to be next to the employee one. Because what I want to do here is I want to say continue next element on the same line, to put this line on the same line as the meaningful contribution of the employee. And for this guy, I'm going to create a radio button. As the manager, I also want to review this, so I'll say strongly agree, agree, somewhat disagree, and one last is going to say strongly disagree, and that'll be a 0. Okay, and that's side by side, and I have job satisfaction. I also want to do manager job satisfaction underneath that, and we'll make that a text area. Okay, and then the last step here is to just make all the fields required, which means for when it's completed, we're going to enable the rule, and we're going to add that, and we're going to say if manager completed is checked, I want to require manager meaningful contribution, so that's going to be a required field. Also, we're going to require manager job satisfaction. We're going to also require for the manager to be able to submit their signature, and also we're going to require the signature date. Okay, so this is the conditional logic. I'm going to go ahead and click on finish now, and now you'll see when I refresh my page, you can see this side by side. As a manager, I want to be able to submit my review as well for this employee, and I also want the job satisfaction of the manager to be able to have that as well. Okay, and then once you're fully done with this, you can go ahead and submit your review, add some notes, check if you're done. It verifies that all of the other ones that you made required are filled in. Okay, and then you sign off on it as Roger Moore, and we're going to date this as today's date. Click on update. Okay, so I forgot to actually filter this, because when I'm done with this, it's supposed to remove it from the department completed, and it's supposed to go to manager completed. Okay, so this also needs to be filtered based on that manager checkbox. Okay, so let's go to our data pages, and let's click on edit. And we will go to next, 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 and right over here in the filtering fields, we want to include manager completed. Okay, and what you want to do here is leave this as checked. okay? Because once it's checked, actually you want to filter it so it's not checked, okay? No, you want to filter as it's not checked because you want to see all the pending ones that came in from the employees, okay? Which means I also have to include the employee checkbox as well. So this is where it can get a little bit more confusing, but you just have to play around with these checkboxes to see what's going to filter what. So the employee checkbox, as long as the employee is completed, I want to be able to see it in this report, okay? But if it's unchecked from the manager, I also want to be able to see it inside this report. But once I check it, it's going to remove it because it's filtering only on unchecked. So hopefully that'll show me what I want to see. It's going to remove it, and it does remove it, okay? So now it's going to be over here under manager completed, so I have to build this data page for manager completed. All the ones that I, as a department manager, finished the evaluation, okay? So now all I have to do is now just make a copy of this. I don't have to actually rebuild it. I can make a copy of this data page, and let's call this, how about manager department completed reviews? Save. And let's make a few edits here. So what we'll do is we'll click next. Let's make sure everything is correct. Good, good. And now I want this to be checked because I want to display if employee is checked and if manager is checked. I want to display it. I want to filter these evaluations based on those two checkboxes as long as they're checked. Okay, let's click next. Next, next, and let's go to details page. And in the details page, I no longer have the ability as a manager to make modifications. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make everything display only because I already submitted my review. Okay, so you just have to make sure you just go to display only for all of these ones that we did as a manager. Okay, so display only. Goal 1 is display only, and everything else will be display only. Manager notes, display only. Manager completed. So this will be, we don't need to actually have this inside because it's already completed by the manager, so we no longer have the ability to edit. So we can remove this checkbox, manager signature. We can display this if we want to. And also the signature date we can display. And let's click finish. And there's that data page. Okay, so now what we're going to do is deploy this one into the page that we called manager completed. Okay, so let's go to our files and let's go to manager completed and let's paste our code. Save it, and hopefully we should see that one review from Mark. Okay, so now let's go ahead and test out the entire workflow from start to finish, from the employee side all the way until the department manager. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as Mark again, just to make sure everything is working correctly. You always want to backtrack a little bit, start from the beginning, and make sure that the workflow is there. Okay, so you can move on with the other steps. So we'll log in as Mark, who is the employee. Okay, and then what we're going to do is start a new review as Mark, and we'll say today's date. Okay, check if you're done, and we'll say Mark. Now we'll select this date here, click submit. My reviews, in progress none, completed 2. All right, so here's my second review here. This is the second one that I completed. Okay, I don't have any manager reviews yet. Good. All right, so I completed this one. So now let's go ahead and log in as Roger. And the first thing I'll see as Roger is that new review that Mark finished. Okay, so here's the start date, here's the end date. It doesn't really make much sense because it's going backwards, but I can go to details and now I can complete this review. Manager job satisfaction, did a fantastic job. Check, 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 and we'll say manager signature is Roger Moore, and signature date, update, goes away, but I can see it here under manager completed. But now that the manager finished the review, as Mark, I would like to see how my manager felt about my review. So when I log in, I should be able to see my in progress, my completed, and also the manager review, which I haven't built yet. Okay, and all the employees should be able to see this. Okay, so we're going to go to our Caspio account, and under the employee folder, we're going to build a data page that's going to show the manager completed review. So new data page, and we're going to go to reports, reviews. I hope I'm not confusing you with a lot of this information. I know it can be a little bit overwhelming, but even myself, you know, even though I can build this in roughly about an hour and a half or 2 hours, if I really put my mind to it, I still have to check my work a couple of times, because when you're building an application, you're always going to end up checking your work, you know, just to make sure that all the steps are working properly and everybody is able to see all the correct information. So again, based on the table reviews, I want to be able to see my manager completed review, something like this. Let's enable both of these, and let's restrict access based on all employee access. We're going to filter our data, and I want to see my review based on my employee ID. And over here when it comes to filtering now, so let's see if we can figure this out. What I want to see is my employee completed, as long as I completed it, and as long as the manager completed it. So we're going to filter based on these two checkboxes. And this needs to be checked, and once the manager completes it, he's going to check it, and now as an employee I'll be able to see this in my tab. So now let's go to the results page. I'm going to show my review start date, review end date, manager end date, when they finish my review, and that's all I want there. Let's click on next, next. Let's go to the details page, and now you just have to organize your details page how you want that data presented. So start date, end date. I can see what I scored myself on my meaningful contribution, but I also, underneath that, I want to see what my manager said about my meaningful contribution. Same thing for job satisfaction. This is my job satisfaction, and this is my manager's job satisfaction. And I can see if he edited my goals. And let's see if I want to list anything else here. Manager's signature, maybe I want to see that, and also the manager's date, and also the manager notes and HR notes inside there as well. And again, if blank, hide this field for both of these, and everything here needs to be display only. As an employee, once the manager finishes the review, the employee should not be able to edit the manager's review, just display only. Click finish, and let's go ahead and deploy this inside the employee side now for Mark to be able to see. So let's go to our folders. Actually, let's go here, and this is called My Manager Completed. So inside that employee folder, My Manager Completed. Okay, let's paste it, save it, and refresh it. And there it is. Okay, so I'm seeing both of these now because they're both completed by my manager, and I can go to details, and now I can see how my manager felt about my own self-review and also the meaningful contribution. Let me check on the time. I'm going to end the session at this, okay, because the most important steps have been covered. What you have to do now is just duplicate the data pages for the HR level, okay, but we pretty much have a fully functioning application over here. Hopefully it wasn't too much to absorb. I know I was going back and forth a little bit, but when you're building these applications, you really have to do that, because when I build one user level, I want to make sure that's applied to the next user level, so I have to go back and forth a little bit to make sure that all the steps are working properly. Okay, now this video or this training session has been recorded. We're going to have this available on our website so you can watch this in your own time. But really the most important thing I wanted you to learn from today's training session is that authentication and the foundation, which inside your account requires one employee table. Okay, then you have your views, authentications, and then in the data page level, you build that HTML data page for the login screen, with a little bit of JavaScript to redirect based on who you are in the table. That takes you to your own interface. And then from there, you just have to set the functionality in terms of workflow with the checkboxes, depending on how you wish the workflow to go. Okay, and this application here is a completely internal application. There's nothing public facing. This is for departments, for companies, depending on the needs of your application. This one here in particular is performance evaluation. You could have something like a CRM to manage prospects. You can have task management to manage tasks or projects. You have to name your application, and you have to set it up this way and with all the data pages to what each user level can do. Okay, so let me go ahead and unmute the line now for questions. Like I said, we're going to end at this, and I am available offline as well if you need some more assistance. Hopefully I didn't confuse you even more, but it's pretty easy, and it's almost kind of fun to see how quickly you can build these applications within just a few hours. But just keep in mind, if you were to build this using hand coding, all this database stuff, it would have taken you months.